Have you ever noticed that some women never express attraction in a straightforward way? They do not walk up and announce their feelings. Instead, they quietly measure whether you are worth revealing those feelings to. This is especially true when a woman feels drawn to a man with some years and life behind him. She does not want to appear desperate. She does not want to expose herself before she knows whether the opening is safe. So she does something subtle instead. She asks questions, and not random ones. When a woman finds herself genuinely pulled toward a man, particularly a man over 50, she will almost always come back to two very specific questions. These questions look ordinary on the surface. Most men hear them as small talk. But they are not small talk. They are invitations wrapped in casual language, and if you do not recognize them for what they are, the moment passes and she moves on. Many men in their 50s and beyond have quietly accepted the idea that they have become invisible to women, or that whatever window they once had has closed. That belief is simply not accurate. Mature men often carry something genuinely compelling that younger men have not yet developed: steadiness, self-knowledge, and an unhurried presence. The issue is not a lack of attraction. The issue is a failure to recognize when that attraction is being communicated. Women rarely broadcast interest the way men tend to expect. They do not usually make direct declarations. What they do instead is observe, sense, and test. They pay attention to how calm you are. They notice whether you are genuinely present in a conversation or somewhere else in your head. They look for small details that tell them something about the kind of man you are beneath the surface. And when a woman begins to feel that you might be someone she can trust, not just socially, but emotionally and personally, her energy changes. The conversation stops being casual and starts carrying a different weight. She begins asking questions designed to reveal three things: whether you are emotionally grounded or quietly insecure, whether your life has real space for someone else in it, and whether you are aware enough to notice that she is even asking. This is where those two questions appear. But to truly understand why they matter, it helps to understand the psychology behind them first. Men who grew up in an era of more direct communication often expect interest to be expressed plainly. A woman who is interested will say so, or at least make it obvious. But that is not how most women, including mature women, tend to operate. Feminine attraction tends to move through suggestion rather than statement. A woman who feels something for you is unlikely to say it outright, especially early on. What she fears, particularly with an older man, is being perceived as needy or too forward. She worries that showing her hand too clearly will cost her something, so she hides her interest inside curiosity. She places it inside questions that look innocent to someone who is not paying close attention. And here is the part that matters most. If you do not notice these questions for what they are, she will not repeat the invitation. Women very rarely extend the same emotional opening twice. Think about the difference in how men and women tend to express interest. When a man is drawn to someone, he tends to act. He offers help, takes initiative, steps forward in some physical or practical way. When a woman is drawn to someone, she tends to ask. She creates small conversational openings to see whether you will step through them with presence and warmth. There are endless things a woman might ask over the course of ordinary life, but two questions surface consistently when she is quietly exploring the possibility of something more with a mature man. She is not asking because she wants information. She is asking because she wants to feel your emotional temperature. She is checking whether you are calm, whether you are open, whether you carry a kind of steadiness she can feel safe around, whether you are genuinely present with her or simply going through the motions of polite conversation. These questions are not about gathering facts. They are about sensing connection. They are small bridges she places carefully between herself and you to see whether you will meet her on the other side. When you do, something shifts in how she experiences you. Most men respond to these questions at face value and miss everything underneath. A man who understands what is actually happening hears the deeper meaning, because when she asks, she is not collecting data. She is checking alignment. She is finding out whether you are the kind of man who notices what is not being said directly. When a woman feels genuinely drawn to you, she does not need you to perform. She does not need impressive stories or visible achievements. What she needs to feel is that you are conscious, present, and settled. These two questions are her way of checking for exactly that. The first question a woman asks when she is interested is designed to reveal one specific thing: your availability, not your schedule, your heart. She wants to sense whether your life has emotional room in it, whether you are open to closeness, or whether you have quietly closed yourself off inside your routines. This is not a practical question disguised as a personal one. It is a psychological question dressed up as casual conversation. What she is really asking is whether you are open or closed, reachable or walled off, someone she can move toward without being pushed back. Women are careful with their emotional energy. They do not want to invest themselves in a direction that leads nowhere. So before she reveals any deeper interest, she tests for openness. This first question is essentially her version of leaning slightly forward to see whether you lean toward her or pull back. Most men completely miss this because they assume she is just making conversation. The second question she asks, when the interest goes deeper, is about direction. Not your career plans or your 5-year goals. Your inner direction. She wants to know whether your life is moving somewhere, whether you carry a sense of purpose, whether you know who you are and what you are building. Women do not open themselves to men who seem to be simply drifting through their days. They are drawn to men who are anchored, men who have a clear enough sense of themselves that being near them feels steady rather than uncertain. This question is her way of asking whether you are emotionally alive, whether you have real boundaries and real intentions, whether you carry the kind of quiet masculine stability that makes her feel safe. When she asks it, she is already imagining what being close to you might feel like. A woman may notice a man physically, but she only truly moves toward him when she wants to be inside his presence. This question is her doorway into sensing who you actually are. These two questions carry particular weight for men over 50. By the time a man reaches that stage of life, women tend to make certain assumptions about him. They believe he has already moved through most of his major emotional experiences. They hesitate to enter his world unless they sense there is genuinely room for them, and unless they feel that the man they are considering is living with real purpose, rather than simply filling time. These two questions, quiet and almost invisible as they are, represent a woman checking for both of those things at once. You can miss compliments. You can overlook body language. But if you miss these two questions, you miss the moment she is trying to open a door. And once that door closes, most women do not reach for it again. Here are the two questions themselves, and what is actually being asked beneath the surface of each one. The first is some version of, do you spend a lot of time alone? It sounds harmless. It sounds like something anyone might ask. But it is not casual. It is her way of asking whether there is space for her somewhere near your life. She may phrase it differently depending on the situation. She might ask whether you usually go out alone, whether you tend to keep to yourself, whether you are seeing anyone or just doing your own thing. The specific wording varies. The underlying question does not. It is always about access. A woman asks this only when she has already begun imagining herself somewhere in your world. She is trying to learn whether you are welcoming or whether you have built invisible walls around your daily life that would make closeness feel impossible. If she had no feelings for you, she would have no reason to wonder how you spend your time. But when she is drawn to the stability and calm that many mature men carry, she needs to know whether entering your world would require forcing her way in or whether the door is already slightly open. Most men answer this question literally. Yes, I spend a lot of time alone. Not really. I stay pretty busy. It depends on the week. A man who understands what she is actually asking hears something else entirely. She is not asking about your schedule. She is asking about your openness. To respond in a way that creates genuine warmth and possibility, stay balanced. Be honest without being either cold or desperate. Something like, I value my own space, but I am always open to company that means something. Or, I have my routines, but I am genuinely open to the right person changing the shape of them. This kind of answer does two things simultaneously. It tells her you are emotionally available without being empty or eager to attach yourself to anyone who comes along. It suggests, gently, that she might be someone worth making room for. That combination, open but not needy, receptive but still grounded, is exactly what she is hoping to sense. When she feels that, she naturally moves toward the second question, the one that reveals how deep her interest actually goes. The second question is some version of, "What are you looking for these days?" This is never small talk. It is not idle curiosity. It is a woman exploring whether you might be someone genuinely meaningful in her life. If she felt nothing for you, she would never risk something this direct. It touches something too personal, too exposed. Women save this question for men they are seriously considering. She may phrase it as, "What do you want at this point in your life? What direction are you moving in? What are you focusing on lately? What are you hoping to find?" The wording shifts. The intention behind it does not. She is asking because she needs to sense your inner direction before she can open herself emotionally. For a woman to truly move toward a man, particularly a mature man, she needs to feel something specific. She needs to feel that he knows who he is, that he is not wandering, that he is not still lost inside old emotional patterns, that he is not simply filling his days with habit and waiting for life to deliver something. She needs to feel that he moves with intention. This question is her way of reading all of that. She is asking herself, is this man's life headed somewhere I could imagine walking alongside? Does he carry emotional purpose? Is he the kind of man I could trust with something real? Men who answer too literally lose the moment without realizing it. When a man says he is just looking for some peace, or that he is taking things one day at a time, or that he is not really sure yet, she hears something beneath those words. She hears drifting. And women do not give themselves to men who drift, not at any age. If you want to answer in a way that actually builds something between you, you do not need a prepared speech. You do not need to lay out your entire life plan. You only need to convey direction. Something like, "I am building a quieter, more intentional chapter with people who matter." Or, "I am looking for connection that feels genuine rather than convenient." Or, "I am focused on living with real purpose, real experiences, and fewer things that do not mean anything." Answers like these communicate three things at once. They show her you are moving rather than stalled. They show emotional clarity, that you know what you want and are not pretending otherwise. And they create a quiet opening where she can begin to imagine herself fitting naturally into the life you are describing. For a woman, this is powerful. It gives her the signal she was looking for, proof that you are not emotionally asleep. Because here is something that most men over 50 never fully take in. Women want a man who is alive on the inside, not simply present in the room, genuinely awake. These two questions are deeply connected to how feminine desire actually works. Women do not test men out of games or manipulation. They test based on emotional readiness. When she asks whether you spend a lot of time alone, she is measuring your openness. When she asks what you are looking for, she is measuring your direction. The logic beneath both questions is straightforward. A man who is emotionally open and moving with quiet purpose creates a natural pull. He becomes someone worth leaning toward. Women do not need a man to be flawless. They need him to be clear. Clarity creates safety, and safety is what allows desire to grow into something real. This is why these two questions surface again and again, across different ages, different backgrounds, different circumstances, even when the woman asking them could not consciously explain why she is asking. Picture what this looks like in an actual moment. You are talking with a woman, perhaps somewhere easy and unhurried. A cafe, a gathering at a friend's home, a bookstore, an unhurried online exchange. The conversation has found its rhythm. There is ease between you, a subtle warmth, the kind of light tension that exists when two people are genuinely interested in each other. She laughs a little more freely than the conversation strictly requires. She is more present than polite, and then she asks, "So, do you spend a lot of time alone?" That is her first step toward you. She has opened the door slightly. If you respond with genuine presence, she feels encouraged to continue. If you answer with confusion or deflect the question, the warmth drops and she quietly recalibrates. Then, perhaps minutes later, perhaps the next time you speak, she asks, "What are you looking for these days?" That is her second step. That is her deciding whether to go deeper. If you answer with clarity, she feels genuine possibility. If you answer with vagueness or uncertainty, she retreats without ever saying so. Men tend to experience these moments as random. They are not. They are emotional checkpoints. And women almost never ask these two questions of a man they feel nothing for. A woman who wants real closeness, not just surface-level friendliness, but genuine emotional and personal intimacy, will not announce it. She will not confess it. She will not make herself vulnerable before she has any sense of whether it is safe to do so. What she will do is ask two questions. The first to find out whether you are open, the second to find out whether you are alive with purpose. These questions are not about your plans or your calendar. They are about your energy. When you recognize them for what they are, you can meet her in the moment with real presence. When you miss them, the moment dissolves, and women rarely rebuild the same opening twice. If there is one thing worth carrying from all of this, let it be this. A woman does not test your words. She tests your awareness. The moment you learn to recognize the questions she uses to signal genuine interest, you will never again walk away from a conversation wondering whether something was there. Understanding how women communicate attraction changes the way you move through every interaction. Women see mature men through a different lens than they see younger ones. They expect more depth, more presence, more self-awareness. A younger man can be uncertain and inconsistent and still be forgiven for it. A man over 50 is held to a quieter, more serious standard. Women assume he has lived through enough to know himself. That is why their interest arrives through emotional signals rather than obvious gestures. When a woman asks questions that touch your openness or your sense of direction, she is not collecting information. She is reading your emotional landscape. She wants to know whether drawing closer to you would feel worth it, not based on what you have or what you have achieved, but based on how fully you see her and how intentionally you make her feel that her presence matters. The moments that stay with people longest are never the grand or expensive ones. They are the moments of genuine attention, of real listening, of being noticed not for the surface of who you are, but for the specific, quiet things about you that most people never take the time to see. A woman who feels that kind of recognition from a man does not forget it easily. When you bring that quality of presence into your interactions, you stop being someone she spoke to once and start becoming someone she thinks about when the conversation is long over. If this gave you a new way of seeing the signals you might have been missing, share it with someone who could use the perspective shift.